Hello there and welcome to Napflix. I'm glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you've had a long day. Maybe you're just the kind of person who likes to fall asleep learning something quietly extraordinary. Either way, you're in the right place. You've got nothing to do right now but rest. Let your breathing slow. Let the day fall away. None of it matters tonight. Tonight, we're stepping into a world you walk through every day without noticing. A world that has been shaping human history for thousands of years, that has killed philosophers and healed kings, that has started wars and ended plagues, that has driven artists to madness and monks to devotion. A world that is, right now, as you lie here, producing invisible chemical weapons in the quiet of a garden somewhere nearby. Tonight, we're exploring herbs, not the way you might expect, not a gentle list of facts about basil and rosemary. Tonight, we're going deeper into the chemistry that makes a sprig of mint trick your brain into feeling cold when nothing has changed, into the reason a single whiff of lavender can transport you to a memory you haven't thought about in 20 years, into the medieval monasteries that saved the knowledge of the ancient world by growing it in rows of soil, into the fields of saffron that are worth more than gold, into the dark side, the herbs that look identical to the ones in your kitchen but will kill you in hours. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you. Some of it may be the last thing you remember before you drift off. Either way, it will be here when you wake up. And just before we begin, if these calm, curious journeys help you unwind or give you a quiet way to end your day, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit subscribe and leave a like on this video. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here too. One listener at a time. Now, let's begin. Here is something most people never think about. Every herb in your kitchen is a chemical weapon. That is not a metaphor. It is not an exaggeration. The fragrant oils that make rosemary smell like rosemary, that make thyme smell like thyme, that make basil fill a room with warmth the moment you tear a leaf. Those oils were not made for you. They were not designed to flavor your dinner. They were designed to kill. Plants cannot run. They cannot hide. They cannot bite or claw or scream. When an insect lands on a leaf and begins to eat, the plant has no way to fight back physically. So over hundreds of millions of years, plants evolved a different kind of defense. They learned to make poison. The essential oils in herbs, the terpenes, the phenols, the complex volatile compounds that give each herb its distinctive scent, are, in biological terms, chemical weapons. They repel insects. They inhibit the growth of fungi. They discourage herbivores from grazing. Some of them are toxic enough to kill small organisms on contact. When you crush a leaf of rosemary between your fingers and breathe in that sharp, clean, piney scent, you are smelling a compound that exists because millions of years of evolution taught that plant to produce. Something that insects find repulsive. Thymol, the compound that gives thyme its flavor, is a powerful antimicrobial agent. It disrupts the cell membranes of bacteria and fungi, effectively dissolving them. Eugenol, found in basil and cloves, is an anesthetic. It numbs tissue on contact, which is why clove oil has been used for toothaches for centuries. Citronella, from lemongrass, confuses the sensory receptors of mosquitoes, making it harder for them to find you. Menthol, from mint, triggers cold receptors in the mouths of grazing animals, creating a sensation unpleasant enough to make them stop eating. These are not gentle substances. They are the plant equivalent of a security system. And the reason Mediterranean herbs, rosemary, thyme, oregano, lavender, sage, are so intensely aromatic is precisely because they evolved in one of the harshest environments on Earth for a plant. hot, dry, sun-blasted hillsides with poor soil and relentless insect pressure. The plants that survived were the ones that produced the most oil, the most potent chemical defenses, the strongest scent. Every time you walk through a herb garden on a warm day and the air is thick with fragrance, you are walking through a battlefield. The scent is beautiful to you. To the insects, it is a warning. But the chemical arsenal of plants goes far beyond defense against insects. Some plants use their chemistry against other plants. This is called allelopathy, and it is one of the quieter forms of warfare in the natural world. Certain plants release chemicals into the soil around them, through their roots, through fallen leaves, through rainwater washing over their foliage, that inhibit the germination or growth of competing plants nearby. They are, in effect, poisoning the ground to keep it for themselves. Fennel does this. If you have ever noticed that very little grows near a large fennel plant, this is why. Fennel releases compounds into the soil that suppress the growth of many other species. It is not being generous with the space, it is claiming it. Walnut trees are famous for the same behavior, producing a substance called juglone that is toxic to many plants, including tomatoes, peppers, and some herbs. The ground beneath a walnut tree is a chemical dead zone for many species. Even the herbs you think of as friendly neighbors in a garden are engaged in subtle chemical negotiations. Basil planted near tomatoes releases volatile compounds that repel whitefly. This is why companion planting works. But basil also releases compounds that can inhibit the growth of certain other herbs planted too close. The garden is not a peaceful community. It is an armed truce. Every plant broadcasting chemical signals, defending territory, competing for resources, forming temporary alliances of convenience. You just cannot see any of it happening. And this chemical ingenuity, this ability to produce complex, powerful compounds, is precisely what made herbs so valuable to humans. Because the same chemicals that kill insects and poison competitors turned out to have extraordinary effects on the human body. Some of those effects heal, and some of them kill. Let's start with the killing. The most famous death in the history of philosophy was caused by an herb. In 399 BC, in Athens, the philosopher Socrates was sentenced to death for impiety and for corrupting the youth of the city. The method of execution was a cup of poison made from hemlock, Conium maculatum, a plant that grows wild across Europe and looks to the untrained eye almost exactly like parsley, or wild carrot, or chervil. The resemblance is so close that hemlock poisoning from misidentification still happens today. People go foraging, pick what they think is a harmless herb, and end up in hospital. Or worse. Hemlock's poison is a compound called conine. It is an alkaloid that works by blocking the neuromuscular junction, the point where nerves connect to muscles. What this means in practice is paralysis. It begins in the feet and moves upward. The legs go first, then the abdomen, then the chest. The mind remains clear throughout. Socrates, according to Plato's account, was fully conscious as the paralysis climbed his body. He could feel himself dying, organ by organ, muscle by muscle, and he could describe it as it happened. When the paralysis reached his diaphragm, he could no longer breathe. He died aware. This is the herb that grows in the same ditches and hedgerows as the parsley you put in your salad. The line between a kitchen herb and a lethal poison is in some cases a matter of a few millimeters difference in leaf shape. And hemlock is not alone. Belladonna, Atropa belladonna, deadly nightshade, is a plant that has been used for both beauty and murder for over 2,000 years. The name belladonna is Italian for beautiful woman, and it earned that name because women in Renaissance Italy used drops of belladonna extract in their eyes. The active compound, atropine, dilates the pupils dramatically, creating the wide-eyed, alluring look that was fashionable at the time. They were putting a poison in their eyes to look attractive. Atropine is a powerful anticholinergic. It blocks the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which controls muscle contractions in the eyes, the heart, the gut, and the lungs. In small doses, it dilates pupils. In larger doses, it causes hallucinations, delirium, seizures, and death. Belladonna berries are sweet. They look like small, dark cherries. Children have died from eating them, mistaking them for fruit. And yet atropine, extracted from this deadly plant, is used in modern medicine every day. In eye examinations, in cardiac emergencies, as a pre-anesthetic agent. The same compound that kills in the garden saves lives in the hospital. This is the paradox at the heart of herbal medicine, and it has been understood for thousands of years. The dose makes the poison. This principle was articulated by the Swiss physician Paracelsus in the 16th century, though herbalists had been living by it for millennia before he wrote it down. Everything is a poison. Nothing is without poison. Only the dose determines whether something is a remedy or a killer. And nowhere is this clearer than in the story of foxglove. In 1785, a physician named William Withering published a book called An Account of the Foxglove. In it, he described how a compound extracted from the foxglove plant, Digitalis purpurea, with its tall spires of purple bell-shaped flowers, could treat dropsy, a condition we now know as congestive heart failure. The compound, digitalis, strengthened the heartbeat and reduced fluid retention. It was a genuine breakthrough in medicine. But Withering did not discover this himself. He learned it from a woman, a herbalist in Shropshire. Her name is not recorded because the names of women who practiced herbal medicine in the 18th century rarely were. Had been using a folk remedy containing foxglove to treat patients with swollen legs and laboured breathing. Withering investigated her recipe, identified foxglove as the active ingredient, tested it on his own patients, and published the results under his own name. He became famous. She remained anonymous. The story repeats throughout the history of herbal medicine. Women who had accumulated generations of knowledge about which plants healed and which plants harmed were the original pharmacologists. They passed this knowledge down through families, through communities, through oral tradition. And for centuries they were ignored, appropriated, or worse. During the European witch trials, which peaked between roughly 1450 and 1750, an estimated 40,000 to 60,000 people were executed for witchcraft. The vast majority were women. And among the accusations levelled against them, knowledge of herbs featured prominently. Women who knew which plants could ease childbirth, which could end a pregnancy, which could reduce fever or calm a troubled mind. This knowledge was reframed as evidence of communion with the devil. The wise woman became the witch. The healer became the heretic. The herbs themselves did not change. The politics around them did. And then there is the herb that reshaped the modern world more than almost any other. Not basil, not rosemary, not anything you would find in a kitchen garden. The opium poppy. Papaver somniferum, the species name means sleep-bringing, has been cultivated for at least 5,000 years. The Sumerians called it the joy plant. Ancient Egyptian physicians prescribed it for pain. Greek doctors used it freely. Roman surgeons relied on it. For most of human history, opium, the dried latex from the seed pod of the poppy, was the most effective painkiller known to medicine. It was also the most addictive substance in the world. From this single plant come morphine, codeine, thebaine, and papaverine, compounds that form the basis of modern pain management. Morphine, isolated in 1804, remains one of the most important drugs in medicine. Codeine is in cough syrups worldwide, and heroin, diacetylmorphine, was originally synthesized from morphine by the Bayer pharmaceutical company in 1898 and marketed as a non-addictive cough suppressant. It was sold over the counter. The name heroin comes from the German word heroisch, heroic, because of the way it made patients feel. The consequences were catastrophic. The Opium Wars of the 19th century, in which Britain forced China to accept opium imports, devastating the country with addiction, reshaped the geopolitics of Asia. Millions of lives were destroyed, entire economies were bent around the production and trade of this one plant. The opioid crisis that continues to devastate communities today is, at its root, a crisis born from a flower that grows in gardens and that people have been using for 5,000 years. One herb, one chemistry, pain relief and addiction and empire and devastation, all from the same seed pod. And then there is wormwood. Artemisia absinthium is a bitter, silvery herb, native to Europe and parts of Asia. On its own, it is unremarkable, a traditional remedy for intestinal worms, hence the name, and a flavouring in certain bitter liqueurs. But in the late 19th century, wormwood became the central ingredient in a drink that consumed an entire cultural era. Absinthe. The Green Fairy, as it was called, was the drink of choice for the bohemian artists and writers of Paris. Toulouse-Lautrec drank it obsessively. Verlaine and Rimbaud wrote under its influence. Van Gogh was drinking absinthe during the period in which he cut off his own ear. Oscar Wilde described it as the cruelest of drinks. After the first glass, you see things as you wish they were. After the second, you see things as they are not. Finally, you see things as they really are, and that is the most horrible thing in the world. The active compound in wormwood is thujone, a terpene that in high doses can cause seizures and hallucinations. For decades, absinthe was blamed for driving its drinkers to madness and violence. It was banned across Europe and the United States in the early 20th century. The panic was enormous. Newspaper headlines warned of an epidemic of absinthism, a condition supposedly distinct from ordinary alcoholism. Modern research has largely debunked the myth. The amount of thujone in a glass of absinthe is far too small to cause hallucinations. The real culprit was almost certainly the alcohol itself. Absinthe was typically 70% alcohol by volume, far stronger than wine or spirits. The artists were not being poisoned by wormwood. They were being poisoned by drink. But the story stuck, and wormwood became the most feared herb in Europe, a plant surrounded by an aura of madness and danger that persists to this day. Absinthe has since been legalized in most countries. You can buy it in any decent bar. The Green Fairy turned out to be mostly harmless. But the story of wormwood is a reminder that the line between medicine and poison, between remedy and ruin, between a herb that heals and a herb that destroys, is not always where you think it is. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing about a plant is not its chemistry at all. It is what people believe about it. These plants, hemlock, belladonna, foxglove, opium, wormwood, are all herbs. They grow in soil, they flower, they produce seeds. They sit alongside basil and parsley and mint in the vast catalogue of plants that humans have cultivated, studied, feared and used for thousands of years. The same evolutionary process that gave rosemary its fragrance gave hemlock its poison. The same chemical ingenuity that makes thyme antimicrobial makes belladonna lethal. The herb garden and the poison garden are not different places. They are the same place. The difference is knowledge, knowing which leaf heals and which leaf kills, which dose soothes and which dose destroys. That knowledge passed down through generations of herbalists, monks, physicians, and wise women is one of the oldest forms of science in human history. Older than writing, older than cities. As old as the first human who chewed a leaf, felt something change in their body, and decided to remember which plant it was. And tonight, as you lie here, every herb you have ever tasted, every scent you have ever breathed in from a garden or a kitchen, is the product of that ancient, ongoing, invisible war between plants and everything that wants to eat them. The garden is not peaceful. It only looks that way. Now let's talk about something stranger, something that is happening inside your head right now, whether you are aware of it or not. Of all 5 senses, smell is the odd one out. And it is the odd one out in a way that explains almost everything about why herbs have the power they do. When you see something, the visual information travels from your eyes to the thalamus, the brain's relay station, and then onward to the visual cortex for processing. When you hear something, the signal follows a similar path. Eyes to thalamus, ears to thalamus, touch to thalamus, taste to thalamus. Every sense passes through this central hub before the brain makes sense of it. The thalamus is the gatekeeper. It organizes, filters, and routes every sense except one. Smell bypasses the thalamus entirely. When you inhale a molecule of lavender oil, it binds to a receptor in your nasal cavity. The signal travels directly, without any relay, without any gatekeeper, to the olfactory bulb, and from there straight into the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala processes emotion. The hippocampus processes memory. No other sense has this direct, unfiltered connection to the parts of the brain that deal with feeling and remembering. This is why a scent can undo you. You can look at a photograph of a place you visited 20 years ago and feel a mild nostalgia. You can hear a song from your childhood and feel a gentle tug. But if you catch a scent, the specific scent of a herb your grandmother grew in her garden, the particular fragrance of lavender that was in the soap at a house you stayed in as a child, the exact smell of rosemary that was roasting in an oven during a Christmas you had forgotten about. The memory does not arrive gently. It arrives whole, complete, vivid. You are not remembering the moment. You are for an instant back inside it. The emotion is not an echo. It is the original feeling, replayed at full intensity, triggered by a molecule that crossed your nasal membrane and went straight to the part of your brain that stores the rawest, least processed version of your experiences. This is called the Proust phenomenon, named after the French novelist Marcel Proust, who described it in his novel In Search of Lost Time. In a famous passage, the narrator dips a Madeleine cake into tea, and the taste and smell unlock an involuntary flood of childhood memory, so complete and so overwhelming that it fills an entire volume. Proust did not know the neuroscience behind what he was describing, but he described it perfectly. Scent does not trigger recollection, it triggers re-experience. And herbs with their complex, potent, volatile essential oils are among the most powerful scent triggers in the natural world. Think about this for a moment. The reason rosemary has been associated with memory and remembrance for thousands of years. The reason ancient Greek students wore garlands of rosemary while studying. The reason Ophelia says, "There's rosemary, that's for remembrance," in Hamlet. The reason rosemary is still placed on coffins and graves in some cultures is not superstition. It is neuroscience, observed empirically long before anyone understood the mechanism. Rosemary contains 1,8-cineol, a compound that has been shown in clinical studies to improve memory task performance. People tested in rooms scented with rosemary perform measurably better on cognitive tasks than people in unscented rooms. The ancient Greeks did not know about the olfactory bulb or the hippocampus, but they noticed that rosemary helped them remember things. They were right, and they were right for exactly the reason the anatomy predicts. Because rosemary's volatile compounds take the express route to the memory center of the brain. But the connection between herbs and the brain goes deeper than memory. Lavender's primary aromatic compound is linalool. When you inhale linalool, it does not merely smell pleasant. It has measurable physiological effects. Studies have shown that inhaling linalool reduces cortisol levels, the hormone your body produces in response to stress. It lowers heart rate, it decreases blood pressure, it shifts the balance of the autonomic nervous system away from the sympathetic branch, the fight or flight response, and toward the parasympathetic branch, the rest and digest response. Lavender does not just smell calming, it is calming. The chemistry is real. The effects are measurable, and they happen through a mechanism that begins in the nose, passes through the olfactory system, and ends with a shift in the hormonal balance of your entire body. This is why lavender has been used as a sleep aid for centuries, and why it is still used in hospitals today. It is not tradition for tradition's sake. It is a compound entering the brain through the fastest sensory pathway available, and producing a cascade of neurochemical changes that promote relaxation. And then there is menthol and the trick it plays on your nervous system. When you chew a peppermint leaf or sip mint tea, you feel a cooling sensation. Your mouth feels cold. But nothing has actually changed temperature. The tea is hot. The leaf is room temperature. The coolness is an illusion. A very convincing one, but an illusion nonetheless. Here is how it works. Your body has specialized receptors called TRPM8 receptors. These are the cold sensors. The proteins embedded in nerve endings in your skin and mucous membranes that fire when the temperature drops below about 26 degrees Celsius. They are the reason you feel cold when you walk outside on a winter morning. They are doing their job, detecting a real change in temperature and sending a signal to your brain that says, cold. Menthol activates these same receptors. It binds to the TRPM8 protein and triggers it to fire, even though the temperature has not changed. Your brain receives the signal cold from receptors that are responding not to temperature, but to a chemical. The sensation is indistinguishable from real. Cold. Your brain cannot tell the difference because the signal arriving through the nerves is identical. This is not a minor curiosity. It is a profound example of how plant chemistry can hijack human neurology. The mint plant did not evolve menthol to give you a refreshing experience. It evolved menthol because activating cold receptors in the mouths of grazing animals creates a sensation that is unpleasant enough to make them stop eating the plant. You experience it as refreshing because the dose you consume is small and the context is pleasant. A cow chewing on wild mint in a field experiences it as a reason to eat something else. Same compound, same receptor, different outcome. And menthol is not the only example. Capsaicin, the compound in chili peppers, does the exact same thing in reverse. Instead of triggering cold receptors, capsaicin activates TRPV1 receptors, the heat and pain sensors. When you eat a chili, your mouth feels like it is burning, But it is not. There is no heat. There is no damage. Capsaicin has simply triggered the receptor that normally fires in response to temperatures above 43 degrees Celsius, and your brain interprets the signal as burning. The pain is real. Your brain genuinely believes you are being burned, but the injury is not. Plants learned to hack mammalian nervous systems hundreds of millions of years before humans existed. Mint makes you feel cold. Chilies make you feel hot. Neither sensation is real. Both are chemical manipulations of your neural hardware, evolved by plants to discourage being eaten. And you enjoy both of them. Humans are the only species that deliberately seeks out these sensations for pleasure. We put mint in our toothpaste and chilies in our food. We have taken the chemical weapons of plants and turned them into condiments. There is something quietly absurd about this. Every time you brush your teeth, a plant is tricking your cold receptors. Every time you eat a curry, another plant is tricking your pain receptors, and you pay for the privilege. Now, here is something that connects all of this to your kitchen. You may have noticed that dried oregano smells and tastes stronger than fresh oregano. But dried basil is a pale shadow of the fresh leaf. This is not random, it is chemistry. Essential oils are volatile, they evaporate. But not all essential oils evaporate at the same rate. The compounds in oregano, primarily carvacrol and thymol, are relatively stable. They do not break down easily and they evaporate slowly. When oregano is dried, the water leaves the leaf, but the essential oils remain, becoming more concentrated as the leaf shrinks. Dried oregano is essentially concentrated oregano. The flavor intensifies. Basil's primary aromatic compounds, linalool, eugenol, and estragol, are far more volatile. They evaporate readily, even at room temperature. When basil is dried, these compounds escape into the air along with the water. By the time the leaf is fully dry, most of what made it smell and taste like basil is gone. What remains is a faint, dusty echo. This is why Italian grandmothers will tell you never to add basil at the beginning of cooking. Heat accelerates the evaporation of volatile compounds. If you add basil to a sauce and let it simmer for an hour, the linalool and eugenol will be long gone by the time you serve it. The basil will have contributed almost nothing. Add it at the very end, off the heat, torn by hand rather than cut with a knife. Tearing ruptures more cell walls and releases more oil, and the full fragrance arrives at the table intact. Rosemary and thyme, on the other hand, contain more stable compounds. Their oils survive heat. This is why they are added early in cooking. They need time and warmth to release their flavor into the dish. A sprig of rosemary simmered in a stew for 2 hours will infuse the entire pot. A sprig added at the end will taste of raw pine needles. Understanding this is the difference between a cook who follows recipes and a cook who understands herbs. The chemistry dictates the timing. The volatility of the compounds determines when each herb should be added, how it should be handled, and whether it survives drying, freezing, or heat. Every kitchen rule about herbs: add parsley at the end, simmer bay leaves for hours, tear basil rather than chop it, toast cumin seeds before grinding, is, at its root, a rule about the physics of volatile organic compounds. The grandmothers knew the rules. The chemistry explains why they work. And all of this, the memory, the emotion, the cold that is not cold, the heat that is not heat, the timing, the volatility, all of it traces back to the same source. Plants making chemicals. Not for us, for themselves, to survive. We simply learned to use what they made. And in doing so, we built cuisines, medicines, rituals, and memories around the chemical arsenal of organisms that were trying to avoid being eaten. The relationship between humans and herbs is not a partnership. It is an accident, a magnificent, ancient, ongoing accident that has shaped the way we cook, the way we heal, the way we remember, and the way we sleep. And you are inside that accident right now, lying in the dark, perhaps with the faintest trace of lavender on your pillow or chamomile in your stomach, while linalool makes its way to your amygdala and tells your brain quietly that it is safe to rest. The herbs are still working, even now. Let's talk about saffron. There is a flower called the saffron crocus. It is small, purple, and unremarkable to look at. It blooms for about 2 weeks in autumn, and when it opens, it reveals 3 tiny red threads, the stigmas of the flower. These threads, when carefully picked by hand, dried slowly, and stored away from light, become saffron, the most expensive spice in the world, more valuable by weight than gold. 75,000 flowers to produce a single pound of saffron, every thread picked by hand, because no machine has ever been invented that can do it without destroying the stigma. The harvest window is narrow. The flowers must be picked on the morning they open before the sun wilts them. In the saffron fields of Iran, which produces roughly 90% of the world's supply, the harvest is a race against time. Entire families work from before dawn, bent over rows of purple flowers, plucking the threads with their fingertips, filling baskets with what amounts, after drying, to almost nothing. The labor is extraordinary, the yield is tiny, and the result is a substance that has been fought over, hoarded, counterfeited, and revered for over 3,000 years. Saffron was used in ancient Persia as a dye, a medicine, and a perfume. Cleopatra reportedly bathed in saffron-infused water. Alexander the Great used it to treat battle wounds. Roman emperors scattered saffron threads on the floors of their banquet halls, the scent rising with the warmth of the room. In medieval Europe, saffron was so valuable that adulterating it, mixing it with cheaper substances to increase the weight, was punishable by death. In 1374, in the city of Basel, a shipment of saffron was hijacked by a band of nobles, triggering the Saffron War. A 14-week armed conflict fought over a cargo of dried flower stigmas. The idea of going to war over a herb seems absurd until you understand the economics. Saffron was currency, it was power, it was worth killing for. Saffron reached England with returning crusaders who smuggled corms, the bulbs of the saffron crocus, home in their hollowed-out walking sticks. The town of Saffron Walden in Essex takes its name from the fields of saffron crocus that once surrounded it. For centuries, English saffron was prized across Europe. The industry eventually declined, undercut by cheaper imports from Spain and the Middle East, but the name remains. A reminder that even a small English market town was once part of a global trade, in tiny red threads worth more than precious metal. Today, a gram of high-quality saffron costs more than a gram of gold. It flavors paella in Spain, risotto in Italy, biryani in India, and tahdig in Iran. Its color is extraordinary. A single thread dissolved in water produces a vivid, almost impossible yellow. Its flavor is complex and difficult to describe, floral, honeyed, slightly metallic, with a bitterness that balances the sweetness. There is nothing else like it. No synthetic substitute has ever successfully replicated it. Saffron remains what it has always been, a product of human labor so intensive and a yield so small that its value borders on the irrational. And yet, people keep growing it, keep picking it, keep paying for it. 3,000 years and counting. But saffron, for all its value, is not the herb that most dramatically shaped the course of human history. That distinction arguably belongs to a group of plants so ordinary, so familiar, that we barely think of them as significant at all. The herbs and spices of the trade routes. For most of recorded history, the movement of herbs and spices across the world was one of the primary engines of exploration, commerce, and conflict. Black pepper from India was so valuable in medieval Europe that it was used as currency. Rents were paid in peppercorns, and the phrase peppercorn rent survives in English law to this day, meaning a nominal payment. Cinnamon from Sri Lanka, cloves from the Moluccas, nutmeg from the Banda Islands. These were not luxuries. They were strategic commodities controlled by empires and fought over by navies. The desire for spices and herbs drove the age of exploration. Columbus sailed west, looking for a shorter route to the Spice Islands. Vasco da Gama rounded the Cape of Good Hope for the same reason. The Dutch East India Company. The most powerful corporation in human history, worth, at its peak, the equivalent of several $1 trillion in modern money, was built primarily on the trade of spices. The company maintained private armies, fought wars, colonized entire nations and committed atrocities, all to control the supply of plants that grew on a handful of small islands in Southeast Asia. Nutmeg is perhaps the most extraordinary example. In the 17th century, the tiny Banda Islands in what is now Indonesia were the only place on Earth where nutmeg grew. The Dutch wanted a monopoly. The English controlled one of the islands, a small volcanic rock called Run. In 1667, the Dutch and English negotiated a trade. The English gave up Run, and with it, their claim to the nutmeg trade, in exchange for a different island. That island was Manhattan. New York City exists in part because of a spice trade. The map of the modern world was drawn, in significant part, by the movement of herbs and plant products across oceans, and it was not only distant spices that shaped history. Common European herbs played their own quieter roles. In 812 AD, the Emperor Charlemagne issued a decree called the Capitulare de Villis. It was, on the surface, a bureaucratic document, a set of instructions for the management of royal estates across the Frankish Empire. But buried within it was a list, a detailed, specific list of exactly which plants, herbs and trees were to be grown on every imperial estate. The list included rosemary, sage, mint, parsley, dill, fennel, coriander, cumin, lovage, chervil, and dozens more. This was not a suggestion, it was a royal command. Every estate in the empire was required to grow these specific herbs. The decree standardized herb gardens across an area that covered most of modern France, Germany, and northern Italy. It ensured that medicinal plants were available in every region. It preserved knowledge of which herbs to grow and how to use them. And because monastery gardens were the primary model for estate gardens, the decree effectively codified the monastic tradition of herb cultivation into law. The Capitulare de Villis is one of the most important documents in the history of European gardening and herbal medicine. It created a system, a network of gardens, all growing the same plants, all maintaining the same knowledge that survived for centuries. Many of the herbs on Charlemagne's list are the same herbs that grow in European gardens today. The continuity is unbroken. When you plant rosemary in your garden, you are, in a sense, following a decree issued by a Frankish emperor 1200 years ago. Herbs also shaped culture in ways that had nothing to do with food or medicine. In the 18th century, London was gripped by what became known as the gin craze. Gin, a spirit flavored primarily with juniper berries, technically the fruit of an evergreen shrub, had become extraordinarily cheap and extraordinarily popular. The poor drank it in staggering quantities. William Hogarth's famous print, Gin Lane, published in 1751, depicted a London neighbourhood destroyed by gin. Buildings collapsing, children falling, a mother so drunk she drops her baby. The gin craze was a genuine public health catastrophe. At its peak, the average Londoner was consuming over 10 litres of gin per year, including children. The government responded with a series of gin acts, attempting to regulate production and sale. The crisis eventually subsided, but juniper, a humble, fragrant herb that grows wild across the Northern Hemisphere, had very nearly brought a city to its knees. Today, gin is fashionable again. Artisanal distilleries producing small batch gins with carefully curated botanical blends. Juniper, coriander, angelica root, orris root, lemon peel, lavender. The herbs that once fueled a crisis now fuel a craft industry. The plant is the same. The context changed. And then there is the distinction that most people never think about, but that shaped the entire global economy of hot drinks. Tea is not a herb. When you brew chamomile or peppermint in hot water, you are not making tea. You are making a tisane, an herbal infusion. True tea comes only from one plant, Camellia sinensis, an evergreen shrub native to East Asia. Black tea, green tea, white tea, oolong tea, all from the same species. The difference is determined by how the leaves are processed after picking. Herbal infusions, chamomile, mint, rooibos, hibiscus, lemon balm, are technically not tea at all. They contain no caffeine unless they happen to include a caffeinated plant, and they are produced from dozens of different species. This distinction matters because the tea trade was one of the most consequential economic forces in modern history. The British East India Company built its fortune on tea from China, then established vast tea plantations in India and Sri Lanka to break the Chinese monopoly. The Boston Tea Party, the act of protest that helped ignite the American Revolution, was about tea, not tisanes. The Opium Wars were driven in part by Britain's desperation to find something to trade with China in exchange for tea, because China had no interest in European goods. The British solution was to grow opium in India and sell it to China, creating millions of addicts to balance the trade deficit created by Britain's appetite for tea. One plant, one shrub, and from it, colonialism, revolution, addiction, and the reshaping of entire continents. Herbs and spices are not garnishes on the plate of history. They are ingredients in the recipe. They drove exploration, funded empires, started wars, and redrew the map of the world. The plants themselves are small, quiet, and unassuming. But the human desire for their flavors, their scents, their effects on body and mind. That desire has been one of the most powerful forces in civilization. And it began, as everything does, with someone picking a leaf, tasting it, and wanting more. The next time you reach for the pepper grinder or tear a leaf of basil, you are participating in a chain of events that stretches back thousands of years, across oceans and continents, through wars and treaties and revolutions. The herb on your plate is not just food, it is history, compressed into a leaf. Section 4, the monastery gardens and the preservation of knowledge. When the Roman Empire fell, the world lost its libraries. This is not quite true, but it is close enough to feel true. The collapse of Rome. In the 5th century was not a single event, but a slow unraveling. Decades of invasion, economic decline, political fracture, and the gradual abandonment of the institutions that had preserved and transmitted knowledge for centuries. Roman libraries were destroyed or abandoned. schools closed. The network of scholars, physicians, and teachers who had maintained the intellectual traditions of Greece and Rome scattered or died. The great medical texts, Dioscorides' De Materia Medica, Galen's treatises on anatomy and pharmacology, Pliny's natural history, with its extensive catalogues of medicinal plants, survived in scattered copies, but the infrastructure for studying, teaching, and applying that knowledge collapsed. Into this void stepped the monasteries. Across Europe, in the centuries following Rome's fall, monastic communities became the last functioning centers of literacy, learning, and organized knowledge. Monks copied manuscripts by hand, painstakingly, letter by letter, page by page. In cold scriptoria lit by narrow windows, they copied scripture, of course, but they also copied the works of Greek and Roman scholars, including the medical and botanical texts that described which plants healed and which plants harmed. Without the monks, much of this knowledge would have been lost entirely. The thread connecting ancient herbal medicine to the modern world would have been cut. But the monks did not merely copy the texts, they tested them. Every monastery of any size maintained a garden, a physics garden from the Greek word physica, meaning natural science, where medicinal herbs were grown, harvested, and prepared into remedies. These were not decorative spaces. They were working pharmacies. The monks grew the plants described in the ancient texts, prepared them according to the instructions, administered them to the sick, and recorded what happened. They were, in effect, conducting the earliest form of clinical research, testing ancient prescriptions against real patients in real time, with real outcomes. The monastery infirmary was the hospital of the medieval world. When people fell ill, they came to the monks. When plague swept through a region, the monastery was often the only place that had both the knowledge and the supplies to offer treatment. The herbs in the physic garden were not academic curiosities. They were the medicine cabinet: lavender for headaches and anxiety, chamomile for digestive complaints and sleeplessness, sage for sore throats. The Latin name salvia, meaning to save, was taken seriously. Comfrey for broken bones, which is why its folk name is knitbone. Yarrow for wounds. It was sometimes called soldier's woundwort because of how frequently it was used to stop bleeding on the battlefield. Feverfew for fevers. Valerian for agitation and insomnia. Hyssop for respiratory ailments. Rue for everything from eye strain to snake bites, though its effectiveness for the latter was questionable at best. Each plant had its place in the garden. Each had its documented uses, and the monks maintained these gardens with the same devotion they brought to prayer, because, in their understanding, tending the sick was a form of worship. To heal was to serve God. The physics garden was sacred ground. One of the most remarkable figures to emerge from this tradition was Hildegard von Bingen. Born in 1098 in what is now Germany, Hildegard was a Benedictine abbess, a composer, a mystic, a theologian, and one of the most important medical writers of the medieval period. She wrote two major works on natural history and medicine, Physica and Causae et Curae, in which she described the medicinal properties of hundreds of plants, animals, and minerals. Her knowledge of herbs was extraordinary, detailed, and practical. She wrote about the uses of fennel, nettle, yarrow, tansy, and dozens of other plants with a specificity that suggests direct experience. She was not merely copying ancient texts. She was observing, testing, and recording her own findings. Hildegard was also a composer of remarkable originality, a visionary who described elaborate, luminous visions that she attributed to divine revelation, and a political figure who corresponded with popes, emperors, and bishops. She was, by any measure, one of the most accomplished individuals of the 12th century. And at the center of her work, threading through her theology, her music, her medicine, and her understanding of the natural world, was a concept she called viriditas, greening power, the vital force that flows through all living things, that makes plants grow, that sustains health, that connects the human body to the natural world. Viriditas was, for Hildegard, both a spiritual and a medical concept. Illness was a loss of viriditas, a disconnection from the green, growing, life-giving force of nature. Healing meant restoring that connection, and herbs were the primary means of doing so. The physics garden was not just a source of remedies, it was a source of viriditas itself, a place where the greening power of the earth was concentrated, cultivated, and made available to those who needed it. Hildegard's writings were preserved and copied and passed down through centuries of monastic tradition. She was declared a Doctor of the Church by Pope Benedict XVI in 2012, one of only 4 women to hold that title in the entire history of the Catholic Church. A 12th century nun who grew herbs and wrote about their healing properties is now officially recognized as one of the great teachers of Christian theology. The physic garden and the cathedral were never as separate as they seemed, but the monastery tradition had a shadow, and that shadow fell most heavily on women outside the monastery walls. The monks had institutional protection. They worked within the church, the most powerful institution in medieval Europe. Their knowledge of herbs was sanctioned, respected, and supported. But women in villages and towns who possessed similar knowledge, women who knew which herbs eased childbirth, which reduced fever, which could induce sleep or end a pregnancy, had no such protection. Their knowledge was passed down through oral tradition, mother to daughter, neighbor to neighbor. It was practical, effective, and entirely unofficial. And it was dangerous. The European witch trials, which intensified from the 15th century onward, targeted women disproportionately. Among the accusations commonly leveled against suspected witches, herbal knowledge featured prominently. The ability to prepare potions, salves, and remedies was reframed as evidence of dark magic. The wise woman, the village healer, the midwife, the herbalist, became the witch. The same knowledge that the monks practiced safely behind monastery walls could get a woman burned at the stake if she practiced it in a village. The scale of the persecution is difficult to comprehend. Estimates of the total number of people executed during the witch trials range from 40,000 to 60,000, though some historians argue the figure may be higher. The vast majority were women. The accusations were often rooted in fear, jealousy, or misunderstanding. A neighbor's cow died, a child fell ill, a crop failed, and someone needed to be blamed. Women who stood out, who lived alone, who were old or poor, who had knowledge that others did not understand, were vulnerable. The herbs themselves were sometimes used as evidence. A woman found with certain plants, belladonna, henbane, mandrake, could be accused of preparing witches' ointments. The so-called flying ointments of medieval folklore were said to contain hallucinogenic herbs that allowed witches to fly to their sabbaths. Modern researchers have analyzed these recipes and found that they did indeed contain plants with powerful psychoactive properties. Henbane contains scopolamine and hyoscyamine, both of which can cause vivid hallucinations and a sensation of floating. The flying was probably real, in the sense that the ointments induced a hallucinatory experience, but it was chemistry, not sorcery. The women who knew how to prepare these substances were herbalists, not witches. The distinction was not one that their accusers were interested in making. The persecution of herbalists as witches had lasting consequences. It disrupted the transmission of herbal knowledge in many communities. It drove folk medicine underground. It created a climate of fear around women's healing practices that persisted for centuries. And it contributed to the gradual centralization of medical authority in the hands of university-trained male physicians. Men who, ironically, often knew less about the practical uses of herbs than the women they had displaced. One figure who fought against this centralization was Nicholas Culpeper. Culpeper was an English botanist, herbalist, and physician who, in 1652, published The English Physician, a comprehensive guide to medicinal herbs written not in Latin, the language of the educated elite, but in English, the language of ordinary people. This was a radical act. Medical knowledge had been jealously guarded by the College of Physicians, which conducted its business in Latin precisely to prevent common people from accessing it. Medicine was a profession, and professionals protected their monopoly. Culpeper broke the monopoly wide open. His book described hundreds of herbs, their medicinal properties, where to find them, how to prepare them, and what ailments they could treat. It was written in clear, accessible language, and it was cheap enough for ordinary people to buy. It became one of the best-selling books in the English language, reprinted continuously for over 300 years. Culpeper democratized herbal medicine. He took knowledge that had been locked behind Latin and institutional walls and gave it to anyone who could read. The medical establishment despised him. The College of Physicians attacked him viciously, calling him a quack and a charlatan. They resented that he was giving away, for the price of a book, knowledge that they charged handsomely to dispense. Culpeper, who had served as a field medic during the English Civil War and had been shot in the chest at the Battle of Newbury, was unmoved by their criticism. He continued writing and publishing until his death in 1654, at the age of 37, probably from tuberculosis complicated by his war wound. His book outlived him by centuries. Copies of The English Physician were carried to the American colonies, where they became essential references in communities that had no access to trained physicians. Culpeper's work shaped folk medicine on both sides of the Atlantic, and his fundamental principle, that knowledge of healing plants belongs to everyone, not just to the privileged few, remains one of the most important ideas in the history of medicine. The physics garden tradition did not die with the Middle Ages, it evolved. In 1673, the Worshipful Society of Apothecaries established the Chelsea Physic Garden in London, a walled garden on the banks of the Thames, dedicated to the study of medicinal plants. It is still there, still open, still growing many of the same herbs that were cultivated in medieval monastery gardens 800 years ago. You can walk through it today and see lavender, sage, rosemary, chamomile, fennel, and hundreds of other medicinal plants growing in neat beds, labeled with their Latin names and their traditional uses. The garden has survived the Great Fire of London, 2 world wars, and the complete transformation of the neighborhood around it. It endures because the knowledge it preserves, the knowledge of which plants heal, has never stopped being relevant. From the monastery scriptoria to Hildegard's visions to the village, herbalists burned as witches to Culpeper's radical book to the Chelsea Physic Garden. The story of herbal knowledge in Europe is a story of preservation and loss, of power and access, of who is allowed to know which plants do what, and who is punished for that knowledge. The herbs themselves have not changed. The same plants grow in the same soil, producing the same compounds, offering the same effects. What changed over and over was who was permitted to use them. And in the quiet of the gardens, the monastery gardens, the physic gardens, the village gardens tended by women whose names were never recorded. The plants kept growing, kept producing their oils and their medicines and their scents. Patient, indifferent to human politics, doing what they have done for millions of years. The knowledge survived, not because of institutions, but often in spite of them. Passed down by people who believe that knowing which leaf heals a fever or which flower calms a restless mind was not a privilege to be hoarded, but a gift to be shared. And that knowledge is still alive tonight, in every cup of chamomile tea, in every sprig of rosemary placed on a grave, in every lavender sachet tucked under a pillow. The monastery gardens are still growing. They just look different now. Let's go outside for a moment, into a garden, any garden where herbs are growing. Stand among the rosemary and the thyme. Look at the lavender, watch the mint spreading along the edge of a path. Listen to the bees. Breathe in. It feels peaceful, quiet. Still, it is none of those things. Beneath your feet and in the air around you and in the tissues of every plant you can see, a war is being fought. A slow, silent, chemical war that has been going on for hundreds of millions of years and that will continue long after every human garden has been abandoned and overgrown. The plants around you are not passive. They are not decorative objects waiting to be harvested. They are organisms engaged in a constant, active, sophisticated struggle for survival, competing for light, for water, for nutrients, for space. And they are doing it with a chemical arsenal that would impress a pharmaceutical company. We talked earlier about essential oils as weapons, but that is only part of the story. The full picture is stranger, more complex and more beautiful than a simple arms race. Plants talk to each other, not with words, not with sound, but with chemistry. When a plant is attacked, when an insect begins eating its leaves, when a caterpillar chews through its stem, when a fungal infection begins to spread, the damaged plant does not simply suffer in silence. It releases volatile organic compounds into the air. These are airborne chemical signals carried on the breeze, and they can be detected by neighboring plants. The neighboring plants, upon receiving these signals, begin to prepare their own defenses. They ramp up the production of their own defensive chemicals, the bitter tannins, the toxic alkaloids, the insect-repelling terpenes. They do this before they themselves have been attacked. They are responding to a warning, a chemical alarm call broadcast through the air by a plant that is already under siege. This is not speculation. It has been documented extensively in laboratory and field studies. When a tomato plant is attacked by caterpillars, nearby tomato plants that have not been touched begin producing proteinase inhibitors, compounds that make their leaves harder to digest, effectively making themselves less appetizing before the caterpillars even arrive. When a lima bean plant is infested with spider mites, it releases a specific blend of volatile compounds that attracts predatory mites, the natural enemies of spider mites. The plant is not just defending itself, it is calling for reinforcements, summoning an army of tiny predators by broadcasting a chemical distress signal into the air. Herbs do this too. When a sage plant is damaged, the volatile compounds it releases, the same compounds that give sage its distinctive smell, have been shown to trigger defensive responses in neighboring wild tobacco plants. The tobacco plants begin producing more nicotine, which is toxic to many herbivores. The sage did not intend to warn the tobacco. The tobacco did not consciously decide to listen. But the chemistry works. The signal is sent. The signal is received. The response is real. This is what you are smelling when you walk through a herb garden on a warm day. The fragrance in the air is not just pleasant. It is information. chemical messages being sent and received by organisms that have been communicating this way since long before anything with a brain existed. The garden is not quiet. It is a cacophony of chemical conversation, conducted in molecules instead of words, at a speed and scale that human senses can only dimly perceive. And the communication does not happen only through the air. Beneath the soil, something even more extraordinary is happening. The roots of most plants, including most herbs, are connected to vast underground networks of fungi. These are mycorrhizal fungi, and they form symbiotic relationships with plant roots that are among the oldest and most important partnerships in the natural world. The fungal threads, called hyphae, are incredibly fine, much thinner than plant roots, and they extend far beyond the reach of the root system itself, creating an underground web that connects plant to plant across the entire garden, sometimes across entire forests. This network has been called the Wood Wide Web, and the name, while slightly whimsical, is not inaccurate. Through this fungal network, plants can share resources. A plant growing in a sunny patch can transfer sugars, the products of photosynthesis, through the fungal threads to a plant growing in shade. A plant with access to water can share it with a plant in drier soil. The fungus facilitates the transfer, taking a small percentage for itself as payment. It is mutualism, a three-way partnership between plant, fungus, and soil that has been operating for at least 400 million years. But the network does more than share resources. It also carries signals. When a plant is attacked by a pathogen, it can send chemical warning signals through the mycorrhizal network to connected plants. Those plants then begin ramping up their own immune defenses, producing antifungal compounds, strengthening their cell walls, increasing production of defensive chemicals before the pathogen reaches them. The warning travels underground through fungal threads from root to root, plant to plant. A herb garden with an established mycorrhizal network is not a collection of individual plants. It is a community, a connected, communicating, resource-sharing community linked by invisible threads of fungus, exchanging information and materials in a continuous underground conversation. The rosemary is connected to the thyme. The thyme is connected to the oregano. The oregano is connected to the sage. Pull one plant out and you disturb the network that supports the others. This is why experienced gardeners know that soil health matters more than almost anything else. The fungi are fragile. Tilling the soil too aggressively tears the hyphal network apart. Chemical fertilizers and pesticides can kill the fungi directly. A garden that looks productive on the surface but has dead, compacted, fungicide-treated soil beneath it is a garden that has been disconnected. The plants are alone. The communication has been severed. The community has been broken. A garden with healthy soil, rich in organic matter, teeming with fungal life, undisturbed by excessive digging, is a garden where the plants are talking to each other, sharing with each other and defending each other. It is, in a very real sense, alive in a way that goes far beyond the individual plants you can see. And there is another layer to the ecological story of herbs that explains something you may have wondered about, without ever quite forming the question. Why do Mediterranean herbs taste so strong? Rosemary, thyme, oregano, lavender, sage. These are the herbs that dominate Mediterranean cooking, and they are all intensely aromatic. Their flavor is bold, their scent is powerful, their essential oil content is high. Compare them to herbs from wetter, cooler climates, parsley, chervil, chives, dill, which tend to be milder, greener, more delicate. The difference is not random. It is evolution in response to environment. The Mediterranean climate is brutal for plants. hot, dry summers with intense sunlight, poor, rocky, nutrient-depleted soil, limited rainfall for months at a time, wind that strips moisture from leaves. In these conditions, plants face multiple simultaneous threats: water loss, UV radiation, insect attack, fungal infection. And they need to defend against all of them at once. Essential oils serve multiple survival functions. They reduce water loss from leaves by creating a volatile barrier that slows evaporation. On a hot day, Mediterranean herbs actually release a haze of essential oil vapor around their leaves, a microscopic cloud of terpenes that acts as a form of sunscreen and moisture retention. The oils reflect UV radiation, protecting the leaf cells from sun damage. They are antimicrobial, preventing fungal infections in the warm, dry conditions that fungi love. And they repel insects, reducing herbivory. The plants that survived in this environment were the ones that produced the most oil, the most aromatic, the most intensely flavored. Natural selection, operating over millions of years, drove Mediterranean herbs toward ever higher concentrations of essential oils. The flavor you taste in a sprig of wild oregano picked from a Greek hillside is the product of millions of years of drought, heat, and insect pressure. The harsher the environment, the stronger the herb. This is why wild herbs almost always taste better than cultivated ones. A rosemary plant growing wild on a sun-baked limestone cliff in Provence, struggling for water, fighting off insects, exposed to full Mediterranean sun, will produce essential oils at a concentration far higher than a rosemary plant growing in a comfortable, well-watered, sheltered garden in England. The English rosemary is perfectly fine, but it has not been stressed. It has not needed to produce maximum oil output to survive. It is, by comparison, relaxed, and relaxed plants produce less flavor. This is also why the best olive oil, the best wine, and the best herbs come from vines and plants that have been slightly stressed. Winemakers talk about terroir, the specific conditions of soil, climate, and environment that give a wine its character. The same concept applies to herbs. A thyme plant growing in thin, rocky, dry soil will produce a more concentrated, more complex flavor than one growing in rich, moist loam. The stress is the flavor. The struggle is the taste. Conversely, herbs from cooler, wetter climates, parsley, chervil, dill, chives, evolved in environments where water was abundant, sunlight was moderate, and the threats were different. These plants did not need to produce massive quantities of essential oils to survive. Their defenses are milder, their flavors more delicate, their oils more volatile and more easily lost. This is why these herbs wilt faster, lose their flavor faster, and do not survive drying as well as their Mediterranean cousins. They were not built for harshness. They were built for gentler conditions, and their chemistry reflects it. Understanding this changes the way you think about a herb garden. You are not just growing plants, you are growing the accumulated evolutionary response of each species to the specific conditions of the place it came from. The rosemary carries the memory of Mediterranean drought in its oils. The dill carries the memory of Scandinavian summers in its delicate, fleeting fragrance. The mint carries the memory of stream banks and damp meadows in its aggressive spreading habit. A plant that evolved in wet environments, where the best survival strategy was to colonize new ground as fast as possible. Mint, in particular, deserves a moment of attention, because mint is the herb that reveals the dark side of botanical success. There are over 600 varieties of mint: peppermint, spearmint, chocolate mint, apple mint, pineapple mint, ginger mint. The family is enormous and still expanding because mint hybridizes with casual abandon. Peppermint itself is not a natural species. It is a hybrid, a cross between spearmint and watermint that probably occurred accidentally centuries ago. Peppermint is sterile. It cannot produce viable seeds. Every peppermint plant in the world is a clone, propagated by runners, descended from that original accidental cross. An entire global industry, toothpaste, chewing gum, candy, digestive remedies, essential oils, built on a plant that is genetically a single individual, endlessly copied. And mint spreads, aggressively, relentlessly. Plant mint in open ground, and within a season, it will have colonized every available inch, sending runners underground that surface meters away from the parent plant. It crowds out competitors. It monopolizes resources. It is, by any horticultural measure, an invasive species, one of the most successful colonizers in the plant world. Gardeners who plant mint without containing it in a pot spend years regretting the decision. The most beloved, most refreshing, most universally liked herb in the world is also one of the most aggressively territorial plants you can grow. This is the contradiction at the heart of every herb garden. The plants we find beautiful, fragrant, and delicious are, from their own perspective, soldiers, survivors, competitors. Every scent is a weapon. Every root system is a territorial claim. Every chemical signal is a message, a warning, a call for help, a declaration of war. The garden smells wonderful because it is full of chemical warfare. The herbs taste extraordinary because they evolved under pressure. The mint spreads everywhere because it was built to conquer. You are lying in the dark right now, perhaps with the scent of herbs somewhere nearby. In a tea, in a candle, in a sachet, in the memory of a garden you once visited. That scent is a survival strategy, a battle cry, softened by distance and context into something that your brain interprets as comfort. The plants do not know you find them beautiful. They do not know you exist. They are doing what they have always done, growing, defending, communicating, competing, in a world that is indifferent to human appreciation, but endlessly responsive to sunlight, water, chemistry, and time. And they will keep doing it, tonight, and every night, whether anyone is there to notice or not. The garden does not need an audience. It never has. Let's come indoors now, into the kitchen, where the chemistry of herbs meets the chemistry of cooking, and where a few leaves can transform something ordinary into something that makes you close your eyes and pause. There is a moment that every good cook knows. You have been building a dish for an hour, browning onions, simmering stock, adding spices, and it tastes fine. Competent, complete almost. Then you tear a handful of basil over the top, or stir in a spoonful of chopped parsley, or scatter fresh dill across the surface, and something shifts. The dish wakes up. The flavor lifts. What was flat becomes three-dimensional. What was warm becomes alive. That moment is not magic. It is volatile organic compounds hitting your olfactory receptors at precisely the right time, in precisely the right concentration, because you added the herb at precisely the right stage of cooking. The difference between a good cook and a great cook when it comes to herbs is not which herbs they use. It is when they add them, and that timing is governed entirely by chemistry. We touched on this earlier. Robust herbs early, delicate herbs late. But let's go deeper, because the science of cooking with herbs is more precise and more fascinating than most people realize. When you drop a sprig of rosemary into a pot of simmering stew, the heat causes the plant's cell walls to break down, releasing the essential oils trapped inside. Rosemary's primary compounds, 1. 8-cineol, camphor, and alpha-pinene, are relatively stable at cooking temperatures. They dissolve into the fat and liquid in the pot, dispersing evenly throughout the dish. Over an hour or two of gentle simmering, the rosemary flavor integrates completely, becoming part of the dish's foundation rather than a distinct, identifiable note. This is what chefs mean when they talk about a herb melting into a dish. The volatile compounds have had time to distribute, to react with other ingredients, to become part of a unified flavor profile. Now consider what happens if you add that same rosemary at the end. The cell walls have not had time to break down fully. The oils have not dispersed. You get a sharp, raw, piney hit, almost medicinal, sitting on top of the dish rather than woven into it. The same herb, the same quantity, the same dish. Completely different result. The only variable is time. Bay leaves work similarly, but even more slowly. A fresh bay leaf is actually quite bitter and unpleasant. The compounds that give bay its characteristic subtle, floral, slightly menthol flavor, primarily eucalyptal and linalool, are locked inside tough, waxy cell walls that take a long time to break down. This is why bay leaves need to simmer for at least 30 minutes to contribute anything meaningful, and why they improve with an hour or more. It is also why dried bay leaves are generally preferred over fresh. The drying process cracks the cell. Walls giving the cooking liquid a head start in extracting the oils. A bay leaf added to a quick sauce will do almost nothing. A bay leaf simmered in a braise for 3 hours will have quietly, invisibly transformed the entire dish. The French understood this better than anyone, and they codified it. The bouquet garni, a bundle of herbs tied together with string or wrapped in cheesecloth and simmered in stocks, soups and stews, is one of the foundations of French cooking. The classic combination is thyme, bay leaf and parsley stalks, sometimes rosemary, sometimes sage. The bundle is added at the beginning of cooking, simmered for the duration and removed before serving. It is the architectural foundation of the dish's flavor, the base note over which everything else is built. Fiennes Herbes, by contrast, is the opposite approach. A blend of chervil, chives, parsley and tarragon, all delicate herbs, all volatile, all easily destroyed by heat. Fiennes Herbes are always used fresh, always added at the very end of cooking, and always chopped finely to maximize the release of their oils. They are the high notes, the brightness, the lift that arrives at the last moment and makes the dish feel alive. These two approaches, the long, slow integration of robust herbs and the last-second addition of delicate ones, represent two fundamentally different ways of using plant chemistry in cooking. And the best dishes use both. A French onion soup might simmer with a bouquet garni for 2 hours, building deep, complex, herbal warmth into the broth, and then receive a scattering of fresh chives on the surface just before serving. 2 layers of herb flavor, 2 different chemistries, 2 different timings, 1 harmonious result. Herbe de Provence takes a different approach entirely. This dried herb blend, typically containing thyme, rosemary, oregano, marjoram, and sometimes lavender, works because all of its components are Mediterranean herbs with stable, heat-resistant essential oils. They can be added early and they survive long cooking. They are, in a sense, pre-selected by evolution for exactly this purpose. The same drought-resistant chemistry that helps them survive on a Mediterranean hillside also helps their flavor survive in a hot oven. When you rub herbe de Provence into a leg of lamb and roast it for hours, you are exploiting the same chemical stability that keeps those plants alive in the scorching summers of southern France. The flavor does not fade because the compounds were built to endure. And then there is the question of why certain herbs pair with certain foods. This is not entirely subjective. There is science behind it. Flavor pairing theory, developed in the early 2000s by food scientists analyzing the molecular composition of ingredients, found that foods share many of their volatile compounds. Ingredients that share key flavor molecules tend to taste good together. Basil and tomato, for instance, share several volatile compounds, including linalool and certain aldehydes, which is why the combination feels so natural. It is not just cultural tradition, it is molecular compatibility. The two ingredients speak the same chemical language. Rosemary and lamb share compounds in the terpene family. Dill and salmon share certain fatty acid-derived volatiles. Sage and pork share a group of compounds that are produced when pork fat is heated. The sage, essentially, contains molecules that are already present in the cooked meat, amplifying and harmonizing the existing flavor rather than introducing something foreign. This does not mean that every successful pairing can be explained by shared molecules. Contrast pairings, where an herb provides a flavor that is deliberately different from the main ingredient, creating tension and interest, are equally important. The sharp bite of fresh cilantro against the rich, fatty warmth of a slow-cooked curry. The bright anise sweetness of tarragon cutting through the richness of a béarnaise sauce. The peppery freshness of parsley scattered over a heavy, starchy dish. These pairings work not because the flavors match, but because they counterbalance. The herb provides what the dish lacks. This is why parsley is the most widely used herb in the world. Not because it has the most interesting flavor, it does not, but because its clean, green, mildly peppery taste provides contrast to almost everything. Heavy dishes become lighter, rich dishes become brighter, starchy dishes gain freshness. Parsley is the universal counterbalance. The herb that makes other things taste more like themselves by providing a point of comparison. The ancient Greeks understood this intuitively. They crowned victors of the Nemean Games with wreaths of parsley, the same parsley they planted on graves. The dual symbolism, victory and death, celebration and mourning, reflects something about parsley's nature. It is essential but overlooked, ubiquitous but rarely celebrated. The most important herb in the kitchen is the one that almost no one thinks about. And parsley's germination is famously slow, 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes longer before the first seedlings appear. The ancient Greeks explained this by saying the seeds had to travel to the underworld and back 9 times before they could sprout. The real reason is the hard seed coat, which needs time to soften and absorb water. But the myth captures the frustration perfectly. Parsley makes you wait, and then it gives generously, producing lush foliage for months, asking for almost nothing in return. Now, the cilantro problem. Cilantro, also called coriander leaf, is perhaps the most divisive ingredient in cooking. For most people, it tastes bright, citrusy, and fresh. An essential component of Mexican salsas, Thai curries, Indian chutneys, and Vietnamese pho. For roughly 10 to 14% of the population, it tastes like soap. Not metaphorically, literally. Soap? This is genetic. In 2012, researchers identified a gene called OR6A2 that codes for an olfactory receptor particularly sensitive to aldehyde chemicals. The same class of compounds found in both cilantro leaves and soap. People with certain variants of this gene perceive cilantro's aldehydes as soapy, while people with other variants perceive them as fresh and pleasant. It is not a matter of preference or acquired taste. It is a matter of receptor biology. 2 people can eat the same leaf and have fundamentally different sensory experiences because their olfactory receptors are built differently. This is a profound reminder that flavor is not a property of food. It is a property of the interaction between food and brain. The cilantro does not change. The aldehyde molecules are identical. What changes is the receiver. Your experience of any herb, any food, any scent is shaped not just by what is in front of you, but by the specific configuration of receptors in your nose and on your tongue. Flavor is personal, literally, biologically, genetically personal. Cilantro is also ancient. It has been cultivated for over 7,000 years. Seeds have been found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Roman soldiers carried them to flavor bread. The plant produces two entirely different ingredients: the fresh leaves, which are what most people mean by cilantro, and the dried seeds, which are the spice called coriander. The two taste nothing alike. Cilantro leaves are bright and green and polarizing. Coriander seeds are warm, sweet, citrusy, and universally liked. The same plant, two flavor profiles, one of them loved by everyone and one of them genetically destined to taste like soap to a significant minority of the human population. From cilantro, let us move to another herb that carries a surprising amount of cultural weight for something so small. Tarragon. French tarragon, the culinary variety, not the flavorless Russian imposter, is one of the most important herbs in French cooking and one of the most temperamental plants a gardener can grow. Its flavor is unique, a delicate, sweet anise note, softer than fennel, more refined than star anise, with a complexity that is difficult to replicate. It is essential in béarnaise sauce, in tarragon chicken, in Fiennes herbs, and in the tarragon vinegar that is a staple of French pantries. But French tarragon is a botanical oddity. It rarely flowers, and when it does, the flowers are almost always sterile. It produces no viable seeds. This means it cannot be grown from seed. It must be propagated by cuttings or root division, plant by plant, gardener by gardener, passed along physically rather than scattered on the wind. Every French tarragon plant in the world is, in effect, a piece of another plant, a lineage maintained by human hands, because the plant cannot maintain itself. Russian tarragon, by contrast, produces seeds freely and grows vigorously. It is easy to cultivate, widely available, and almost completely flavorless. Seed packets labeled tarragon in garden centers are almost always Russian tarragon. Serious cooks and gardeners know to avoid them. The only way to get real French tarragon is to find someone who already has it and take a cutting. The best herb in French cuisine is one you cannot buy as a seed. It must be given to you. There is something quietly beautiful about this. A plant that survives only through human generosity, passed from garden to garden, cook to cook, generation to generation. And finally, a herb that most people know only as a garnish, but that deserves far more respect. Chives. The smallest member of the onion family. Slender, hollow, tubular leaves that grow in tidy clumps and carry a gentle, mild onion flavor without the sharpness or bite. Chives have been cultivated for at least 5,000 years, appearing in ancient Chinese and Roman texts. They are one of the easiest herbs to grow. Perennial, reliable, virtually indestructible. And they produce beautiful purple flowers in spring that are themselves edible with a mild onion taste and a lovely crunch. Chives are the supporting actor that makes every lead look better. Scattered over a baked potato, stirred into sour cream, folded into an omelette, sprinkled over soup. Their contribution is subtle but real. A whisper of allium that lifts without overwhelming, that adds colour and freshness to everything it touches. Like parsley, chives are rarely celebrated. They are expected, taken for granted. always there, always giving, never demanding the spotlight. Medieval Europeans believed chives could ward off evil spirits. They hung bunches of chives in their homes for protection. The superstition has faded, but chives remain a guardian of sorts. A quiet presence in the kitchen that protects dishes from blandness and lifts them towards something better. The kitchen is where the chemistry of herbs becomes personal, where the volatile terpenes and stable phenols and complex aldehydes stop being abstract concepts and become the smell of your mother's cooking, the taste of a holiday meal, the flavor that means home. Every culture has its defining herbs: the basil of Italy, the cilantro of Mexico, the dill of Scandinavia, the lemongrass of Thailand, the za'atar of the Levant. And those herbs carry cultural identity as surely as language or music. To cook with herbs is to participate in a tradition that is simultaneously ancient and immediate. The chemistry is millions of years old. The recipe might be your grandmother's. The herb might have been picked from a pot on your windowsill 10 minutes ago. And when you tear that leaf, or crush that sprig, or scatter those chopped green fragments over the surface of something you have spent an hour preparing, you are releasing compounds that were designed by evolution to repel insects, and that have, by a magnificent accident of biology, become the thing that makes your food taste like it was made with love. That is the secret of herbs in the kitchen. They are not ingredients, they are catalysts. They do not just add flavor, they unlock it, they lift it, they connect the dish to something larger, to a place, a tradition, a memory, a feeling. And right now, somewhere in the world, someone is tearing basil over a pot of tomato sauce, and the kitchen is filling with a scent that has not changed in 5,000 years. Every herb has a name, and almost every name is a story. We have already heard some of them. Basil, from the Greek basilius, meaning king. A plant so valued it was thought to deserve a royal title, harvested in some traditions only by those who were ritually pure. Rosemary, from the Latin ros marinus, dew of the sea. A name that captures the sight of wild rosemary glistening with ocean mist on a Mediterranean cliff at dawn. Chamomile, from the Greek chamaemelon, ground apple. Because when you crush the flowers, they smell of warm, ripe fruit. But there are more, many more, and the names taken together form a kind of map. A record of how humans saw these plants, what they valued in them, and what they believed they could do. Sage comes from the Latin salvia, meaning to save or to heal. Not to flavor, not to garnish, to save. The Romans considered sage so powerful a medicine that they developed an entire ritual around its harvest. It had to be gathered using a special knife, not made of iron, after the harvester had made offerings and washed their feet. The proverb, "Why should a man die whilst sage grows in his garden?" was repeated across Europe for centuries. It was not entirely a joke. Sage contains rosmarinic acid, camphor, and carnosic acid. Compounds with genuine antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. The ancients did not know the chemistry, but they knew the plant worked, and they named it accordingly. Thyme comes from the Greek thymon, which may derive from thymos, meaning courage, or from a word meaning to fumigate, because thyme was burned as incense to purify temples and homes. Greek soldiers bathed in thyme-infused water before battle. To smell of thyme was a compliment in ancient Greece. It meant you possessed bravery and vigor. Medieval knights carried sprigs of thyme embroidered onto scarves given to them by the women who wished them safe return. The herb of courage. A plant whose name and reputation have been intertwined with human bravery for over 2,000 years. Oregano comes from the Greek oros and ganos, joy of the mountain, because wild oregano blooms in pink and purple flowers across the rocky hillsides of Greece, and the sight of it, fragrant and bright against the grey stone, was considered a thing of genuine beauty. Greek brides and grooms were crowned with wreaths of oregano at their weddings. The herb was planted on graves to bring peace to the departed. Joy of the mountain, a name given to a plant by people who found happiness in the simple act of seeing it grow where nothing else would. Fennel has a name that changed the world. The Greek word for fennel is marathon. The Battle of Marathon, one of the most famous military engagements in history, where a small Greek force defeated a vastly larger Persian army in 490 BC, was fought on a plain covered in wild fennel. The place was named for the plant, the battle was named for the place, and the modern marathon race, 26.2 miles, takes its name from the legend of a Greek messenger who ran from the battlefield to Athens to announce the victory. Fennel, warfare, athletic endurance, and one of the most iconic events in modern sport. All connected by a plant that grew in the right field at the right time. Lavender, from the Latin lavare, to wash, because the Romans added it to their baths, and the association between lavender and cleanliness has never been broken. 2,000 years later, we still put lavender in soap. The name is a direct line from a Roman bathhouse to your bathroom shelf. Parsley, from the Greek petroselinon, rock celery, because it was first found growing in rocky, stony ground. A plant named for where it grew, not what it did. A humble name for a humble herb. And yet the Greeks used it to crown their athletes and to honor their dead. Parsley has always occupied this strange dual role. Ordinary in the kitchen, sacred in ceremony. Present at both the feast and the funeral. Dill may come from the Old Norse dilla, meaning to soothe or to lull. Dill water, a mild infusion of dill seeds, was given to colicky babies to calm their stomachs. The practice continued for centuries across Northern Europe. A gentle remedy passed from mother to mother, generation to generation. The name carries the purpose, to soothe, to lull. Even the word sounds soft. Borage, possibly from the Latin cor ago, meaning, I bring courage. Roman soldiers drank borage wine before battle. The saying, I, borage, bring courage, was inscribed on drinking vessels. In England, borage became the traditional garnish for Pym's cup, the quintessential summer drink. Its bright blue star-shaped flowers floating on the surface, adding beauty and a faint cucumber taste. A plant that went from battlefield tonic to garden party garnish in a few centuries, but kept its name and its association with boldness. Lemon balm carries the Greek name Melissa, honeybee, because bees are irresistibly drawn to it. Beekeepers for thousands of years have planted lemon balm near their hives, rubbing the leaves on the wood to keep the bees calm and to discourage swarming. The nymph Melissa in Greek mythology was the one who discovered honey and taught humans how to use it. Lemon balm, with its sweet citrus scent and its power to attract bees, was her plant. A herb named for an insect, named for a myth, named for something sweet. These names are not trivia. They are compressed history. Every time you say the word sage, you are repeating a Latin prayer for salvation. Every time you say oregano, you are invoking Greek joy. Every time you say marathon, you are naming a battlefield that was named for a herb. The language of herbs is the language of human aspiration, courage, healing, joy, remembrance, beauty, salvation. We named these plants after the things we valued most, and then we carried those names through millennia, across continents, into languages that the original namers would not recognize. And herbs carry symbolism beyond their names. Rosemary is the herb of remembrance. This is not just Shakespeare, though Ophelia's "There's Rosemary, that's for remembrance" is the most famous expression of it. Rosemary has been placed on coffins and graves across Europe for centuries. Mourners carried sprigs and dropped them into the grave as the coffin was lowered. Rosemary was woven into funeral wreaths. Its evergreen leaves, green through winter, alive when everything else appears dead, made it a natural symbol of endurance and memory. The tradition survives. In Australia and New Zealand, rosemary is worn on Anzac Day, the national day of remembrance for soldiers who served and died in war. A Mediterranean herb carried to the other side of the world, still performing the same symbolic function it performed in ancient Greece. Lavender symbolizes devotion. Brides carried it. Lovers exchanged it. In the Victorian language of flowers, a complex codified system in which every flower and herb carried a specific meaning, allowing people to communicate emotions that social convention prevented them from speaking aloud. Lavender meant devotion, loyalty, and undying love. A gift of lavender was a declaration, not of passion, but of steadfastness, of quiet, enduring affection, the kind that outlasts everything else. Bee laurel symbolized victory and excellence. Olympic champions were crowned with laurel. Roman emperors wore laurel wreaths. Poets were designated laureates, a word that comes directly from laurus, the bay laurel. To be crowned with laurel was the highest honor the ancient world could bestow. And every time you add a bay leaf to a pot of soup, you are using a leaf from the same species of tree that once crowned the greatest athletes, generals, and poets in history. The leaf does not know, but the connection is real. Herbs were woven into bridal bouquets for centuries before flowers replaced them. Rosemary for remembrance and fidelity, lavender for devotion, thyme for courage, sage for wisdom, ivy for faithfulness, myrtle for love and marriage. Queen Victoria carried myrtle in her wedding bouquet in 1840, and the tradition of including myrtle in royal bouquets continues in the British royal family to this day. Every sprig was chosen for its meaning, not its appearance. The bouquet was a message, a collection of hopes, encoded in herbs, carried by a bride into a new life. And herbs were present at the other end of life too. Not just rosemary at funerals, but entire traditions of herbal preparation for the dead. The ancient Egyptians used herbs, including basil, marjoram, and cumin, in the embalming process. The strong antimicrobial properties of these herbs' essential oils may have helped preserve the body, but their inclusion was also spiritual. The herbs were offerings, gifts for the journey to the afterlife. The same basil that the Egyptians placed in tombs with pharaohs is the basil you tear over pasta on a Wednesday night. The plant has not changed. The ritual has. Herbs connect the extraordinary to the ordinary. They sit in your kitchen and in the tomb of a pharaoh. They crown Olympic champions and garnish a bowl of soup. They soothe colicky babies and fortify soldiers before battle. They are named for kings and for the sea and for courage and for washing and for joy. And they are quiet about all of it. They do not announce their history. They do not demand recognition. They grow in their pots, in their gardens, on their hillsides, producing their oils and their scents and their flavors with the same patient indifference they have shown for millions of years. They do not need you to know their stories, but the stories are there, in every name, in every scent, in every leaf you tear and every seed you grind. The entire history of human civilization its medicine, its cooking, its wars, its love, its grief, its worship, is woven through the quiet world of herbs. You just have to know where to look, or tonight, where to listen. And so we come to the end of our journey, or perhaps not the end, perhaps just a pause, a place to rest before the garden grows again tomorrow. Imagine, if you will, that you are standing in a herb garden at dusk. The sun has just set. The sky is a deep, soft blue, fading to violet at the edges, and the last warmth of the day is still held in the soil beneath your feet. The air is heavy with fragrance, not a single scent, but a chorus of them. Lavender, low and sweet. Rosemary, sharp and clean. Thyme, warm and earthy. Basil, soft and green. They mingle together in the evening air, rising from the leaves as the day's heat radiates slowly back into the cooling atmosphere. The essential oils, those ancient chemical weapons, those survival strategies refined over millions of years, are releasing into the air around you. Not for you, not because you are. There because that is what they do, what they have always done. The garden is slowing down. The bees have returned to their hives, heavy with nectar gathered from borage and lemon balm and the tiny purple flowers of thyme. The butterflies have folded their wings. The birds have settled into the hedgerows, their evening songs growing quieter, spaced further apart, until they stop. The garden is entering its own kind of sleep. Not the absence of activity, but a change in rhythm. The photosynthesis that drove the day's growth has stopped, and the plants are shifting into their night chemistry, repairing cellular damage, transporting sugars from leaves to roots, preparing for tomorrow. Underground, the mycorrhizal networks are still active. The fungal threads that connect plant to plant are still carrying their quiet signals, still sharing resources, still maintaining the invisible community that holds the garden together. The communication never stops, even in the dark. You walk along a path between rows of herbs. The lavender brushes your ankle and releases a fresh wave of scent. You reach out and run your fingers along a stem of rosemary, and the oil clings to your skin, and you lift your hand to your face and breathe it in, and for a moment, you are connected to this plant, to this place, to every person who has ever done this same thing, in every garden, in every century. Reaching back to the first human who touched a rosemary bush and thought, this is something worth remembering. The rosemary does not know you are there. The lavender does not care. The thyme is not performing for an audience. These plants are doing what they have done since long before humans existed and will continue doing long after we are gone. Growing, defending, producing their oils, sending their signals, living their quiet, chemical, ancient lives. But you are there. And because you are there, the garden means something more than chemistry. It means something more than survival. It becomes a place of peace, of beauty, of connection to the long, slow story of life on Earth. Every herb in this garden has a history older than civilization. The compounds in the rosemary beside you were being produced by ancestral plants before the first dinosaurs walked the Earth. The mycorrhizal fungi beneath your feet have been forming partnerships with plant roots for 400 million years. The volatile terpenes in the air around you are part of a chemical language that predates every human language by hundreds of millions of years. You are standing in the middle of something ancient beyond comprehension, and it smells like a summer evening. This is what herbs offer in the end. Not just flavor, not just medicine, not just fragrance, but perspective. A reminder that the natural world has been solving problems, building communities, communicating, and thriving for unimaginable spans of time. and that we are late arrivals to a story that began without us and will continue without us. And yet, we are here, and we have made something beautiful with what the plants gave us. We have built cuisines and medicines and rituals and memories. We have named the plants after our highest aspirations: courage, joy, salvation, remembrance, and carried those names across the world. We have fought wars over saffron threads and traded islands for nutmeg. We have preserved the knowledge of healing herbs through the fall of empires and the burning of wise women and the quiet devotion of monks copying manuscripts by candlelight. We have taken the chemical weapons of plants and turned them into the things that make life worth living. The taste of a meal shared with people you love, the scent that brings back a memory you thought you had lost, the cup of tea that tells your body it is safe to rest. The herbs gave us none of this on purpose. They were just surviving. We were the ones who found meaning in their chemistry. And that is perhaps the most extraordinary thing about the story of herbs. Not the plants themselves, remarkable as they are, but us. The species that looked at a leaf, tasted it, smelled it, and decided it was worth remembering, worth naming, worth carrying across oceans, worth fighting for, worth growing in a small pot on a windowsill, even in a city, even in a flat with no garden, because the act of tending a living thing and watching it grow and using what it produces connects us to something we need, something older than language, something as fundamental as breathing. The garden at dusk is quiet now. The colours are fading. The scents are softening. The air is cool. You can stay here as long as you like. There is nowhere you need to be. The herbs will be here in the morning. The rosemary will still smell of the sea. The lavender will still invite calm. The basil will still carry the warmth of a summer that is always, somewhere, happening. Let your breathing slow. Let the fragrance of the garden settle around you like a blanket. Let the ancient, patient, indifferent, magnificent chemistry of plants do what it has always done. The garden does not need you, but tonight, maybe you needed the garden. Sleep well.